Welcome everybody. I'm going to walk you through how to make a titration curve in Excel. So I'm looking at the sodium hydroxide, hydrochloric acid titration data. This is for part D. So you did, I think, one titration. Some people did two, but I'm just looking at one data set. So burette readings are in one column, pH is in another column, and then solution color is in the third. We are only going to be looking at burette readings and pH. So what we're going to start with is inputting in column A our initial burette reading. So that's what I'm going to put right here. My initial burette reading is 0.01 milliliters. So you might have an initial burette reading of 0.00. That means you could actually skip this step. But in case you don't, you're going to be putting the initial burette reading there. Then in this column, you can put the actual burette reading. And then next to that, you could put volume, sodium hydroxide added, and then in the column next to that, pH. So I'll kind of spread these columns apart so you can read the heading in each of them. But the point of the titration curve is so that you can see how pH changes when the titrant is added. The titrant in this case is sodium hydroxide. So in here I'm going to input my burette readings. So you can do that as I go along in the video. Alright, so now I have all my burette readings. So in the column that is volume of sodium hydroxide added, that's what it should say at the top, what you're going to do is input an equal sign, and then you're going to press your initial burette reading, or click on the burette reading, which is the column next to it, and then subtract from that the initial burette reading. And you can either manually input that, or you could identify where that column is found or where that reading is found. So that reading is found in column A, row 2. So in order for Excel to continue inputting that same exact value throughout the column that is volume of sodium hydroxide added, what you're going to do is put a dollar sign and then put the letter A, and then put the dollar sign again, and then the number 2. And that just says, okay, for each burette reading that I have, I'm going to subtract from that the initial burette reading, which is found in this column and row. So you press enter, and then it gives you the volume of sodium hydroxide added. So let's see. My first amount added then, what I wanted to do in column 1 should be, I just input that number wrong. My initial burette reading was 0.01. Okay, so my volume added at the very beginning then would be 0 because I didn't add any volume of sodium hydroxide. Okay, so I want to apply that calculation, the burette reading minus the initial burette reading, to all of my values. So what I'll do is I'll just click on the bottom right hand corner of this cell. So you hover over it and there's a little cross. You click and hold, and then you scroll all the way down. All of your values. So mine goes to 31. So my final value then is 30.99 milliliters added. Okay, so I have all of the volume of sodium hydroxide added. Now I'm going to input all of my pH readings from the very beginning again. So it starts with your initial pH reading and then goes to the very end. Okay, so here are all my volume of sodium hydroxide and pH values. So these two columns are really what you want to graph. So what you'll do is click on the first and hold, drag over to the right, and scroll all the way down until you highlight your final value. Then you'll go up to the top of the page and click Insert, and then go on over to this little scatter plot. Let's see if you can see it the whole way. Press Scatter. Okay, so now here is your titration curve. And what you want to do is first add a chart title. This is a pretty typical strong base, strong acid titration curve. So this will be pH versus volume sodium hydroxide added, HCl, and sodium hydroxide titration curve. Okay, we'll just label it that. It's kind of a long name, but it gives a lot of information. And then you can go back over to add chart element, and we would like a horizontal and a vertical axes label. So on the y-axis this is pH, and then the x-axis this is volume of sodium hydroxide added in milliliters. Alright, and then I want to also add grid lines. We'll do minor grid lines, horizontal and vertical, so that just helps us see where the equivalence point is. Okay, so the equivalence point for only for a strong acid and strong base titration curve is going to be at 7. So I'm actually going to annotate that on the plot. So let's see if I can find that. Okay, so I went to Format, finally found it. If you go to Insert Shape, you can pick an arrow. And let's see, where would 7 be? Oops. Okay, 7 would be right in the middle here. So I'll go back to Insert Shape, which is under Format. Find 7, draw a line over. Notice it doesn't actually touch a data point. Okay, it gets close, but doesn't actually touch one. And I'm going to go back to, let's see, Format. I'm going to insert another shape, another arrow. I'm going to draw down to the x-axis. Let's move that over so you can see. So right here. And that's going to show me what my equivalence point volume is. So it's very close to 25. It might be like 25.01 milliliters, something like that. So each one of these gradations, I think, is 1 milliliter, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Yeah, so this might be 25 point, actually 10, something like that. It's just beyond the 25 milliliter mark. So what I would do, let me kind of make this a little bit smaller. What I would do is add a little text box. Let's see if I can actually find that. Yeah, so we'll make this a little bit smaller so you can see. So if you go to Insert and then all the way over to Text, you can add a text box. Let's make one right here. And I'm going to put volume at equivalence point is equal to 25.10 milliliters. Probably should have made this window a little bit bigger. All right, and then click off of it. And so now you have your volume at equivalence point. Let's make sure the milliliters is showing. There we go. And that is your graph. So that's what you'll need for the titration curve. There's another video that is already uploaded on Canvas that will walk you through how to make the derivative plot, which you will need the same annotation. So you'll need to show what the volume at equivalence point is. You'll need to indicate on the graph where the equivalence point is. But actually constructing the graph is a little bit different because you're using slopes. So pay attention to that video as well so that you can do both of your graphs for the sodium hydroxide and hydrochloric acid post-lab portion.